Hello, MouseHunt. Good morning. Today is January. What is the date today? It is January 21, 2022. My name's Dave. Hello, everybody. Sally Sunshine, first in the chat with a good morning. Good morning to you as well. Sally SM, Blue Viper, pop it in quick with a when Ronza comment. Hey, who knows, Viper? Hello, hope you're doing well. Dark Stormy, Kike, Wendy. Hello, Jonathan. Yoshira, hello to you as well, Lady Nutsy. Good morning, good morning. Oh, we started early, just a bit. Actually, yeah, look at that, a couple minutes early. My timing was a little bit off on how long that song lasts, actually. I had a little trouble. It wasn't coming through my speakers. I had to watch the stream and then remember to mute it shortly thereafter. So maybe that messed up the timing a little bit. But hello, everyone. Hope everybody in the chat is doing well. Thanks for joining me today. Good day. Mites, hello to you as well. Jesco, hello to you. Lawrence, good morning, Jason. So many friendly hunters in the chat. It's a chilly day here. It's had to take out the old garbage and recycling, and sure enough, you take one step outside the garage door, you take a breath through your nose, and then just ice forms inside your nose. That's how you know it is a very, very cold day. I think it was negative 19 when I rolled out there this morning. It has warmed up to a balmy negative 13, though. So, hey, look, we're moving in the right direction. Nathan, hello to you as well. Dave, happy Friday, right back at you. Good midnight, Daniel says in the chat. Well, happy Saturday to you then, depending on if that's where the clock is striking for you. Sean, hey Dave, morning. KDM, pleasure as always. Hello, Dave. Preparing anything for Lunar New Year, asks Owen in the chat. That is a perfect segue, actually. Look, I have a little tiger lantern right next to me here. Yeah, Lunar New Year is coming together rather well. Have a busy day today, I think, pulling together a lot of loose ends. We really want that kind of solid release candidate good to go today, and then next week is just kind of more playtesting, fine-tuning, going through everything with a fine-tooth comb. Usually when we do things like, we'll prepare the news post. Then once everything else is in place, you have all the pieces you need, just in case something changes while you're playtesting. You don't want to write the news post too soon, so it's in good shape. One notable change this year, actually would be good to just share with hunters, get the word out as soon as possible as well, hopefully reduce any confusion when something does change, is the candles in the premium store are being converted into packages, and those packages can be bought and sold on the marketplace as well. So that's kind of in terms of candles in the premium store. That's one change that we're trying out this year as well. Be interested to get feedback on what hunters think of that change as well. Ahead of time, play it out, see what you think. Kind of want to see how that goes as well. It'll be both for the red lantern candles and the regular lantern candles as well. So if you do go to the premium shop, you'll get packages, and you either need to open them yourself or you can trade them via the marketplace and give to friends as well. They're kind of tradable items at that point. Mike says Glitchpaw messed with Dave's start time. Maybe just a little bit, eh? I guess so. Fernandez says, I have a question, don't know how to ask. Why do some mice have belly buttons and others do not? Maybe a solid question for the art team. I don't know. In the world of Narnia, how mouse anatomy might vary from breed to breed, maybe. I don't know if there's a canonical explanation for that or not, though. Daniel, Lunar New Year preparation, yes. Yeah, drinks and food, eh? Just definitely set up camp, both literally in the game and metaphorically or figuratively in your real life. Set up camp and get ready to do a push. I know Dev Norman was even just commenting this morning how he's saying, "Well, I've told other people in my life I'm going to have to definitely sound my horn a little bit more than often, even more than usual during that little 2-week period." So definitely set up. It's a good time to make use of the luck bonus that you get from Lunar New Year, and of course, double and triple loot drops are certainly a whole lot of fun. Angie's happy Friday, Dave. Or Angie, sorry. Right back at you, Angie. James says it'll be interesting to see how much the market value is a red versus white candle. Yeah, absolutely. It kind of be that was feedback we had early on during ideation of this year's Lunar New Year event. Kind of a lot of questions. Hey, can you make smaller packs? And just kind of the team ran with that. We explored it. Kind of we're looking at the underlying kind of sentiment over why that suggestion came through along. I was like, well, why don't we just fully embrace it and see what the feedback's like? And so they're all in packages now. And, that comes with a little bit of caveat, I suppose, if you're getting it for yourself. It's kind of 2 steps. You got to open it up But as you'd expect, to the golden shield will be in there. So even if maybe if you want to save one pack toward the end of the event, and you open it up and use your last 10 candles, and kind of extend the shield toward the end of the event as well. So pros and cons, but hey, we're gonna see how it goes and see what the feedback's like. JP, I received gold cloud curds and 2 Empyrean jewels from a high altitude treasure trove. Well, congratulations on the trove. Lunar New Year is definitely a good time if you're an avid floating islands hunter. Pretty well everything gets doubled or tripled there as well. Anything dropped by a mouse. So the troves you find for exploring an island, they won't be affected by the lantern because they're not a direct loot drop. But I imagine the floating islands will once again be a very popular spot for Lunar New Year, as I'd imagine some hunters as well. Valor Rift might be rather popular spot as well to make good use of that plus 50 luck bonus you get. Meme Sheep says, will there be a new way to get mega tournament tokens now that the event tournaments isn't happening anytime soon? Yeah, kind of a detail we've yet to sort out. Every once in a while, we do go back taking a look at kind of the ongoing issue with tournaments. And it's interesting, too, over just natural development work. You'll be working on something unrelated, and it might give rise to a new theory of like what we could do there. So Giorgio's been hard at work, actually. We kind of got a slight clue there, and he's been investigating a potential solution. We don't want to manage expectations, don't want to make any promises quite yet, but we are kind of behind the scenes. There's a little bit of work going to try to see if we can get those going without a complete overhaul of them, because it's just a large project. It's hard to fit into the roadmap. Jonathan says, I suspect after lunar event you'll be focusing on the spring egg hunt. That's a good segue into the birthday, actually. So we'll switch gears a little bit. So Lunar New Year, then we celebrate MouseHunt's 14th birthday, right? 14? There's so many now, I'm losing track of the years here. I'm pretty sure it's our 14th birthday coming up, though. But you know me with dates and numbers, holy. And then the spring egg hunt will follow after that in April. But we're going to be celebrating our birthday with the King opening the doors of Super Brief Factory once again. The event is slotted to start on Wednesday, March 2. That date might change potentially, but that's our target date anyway. Mouston's birthday is March 8, unless I'm horribly, horribly mistaken. Look at me announcing dates from memory. Usually never goes well. I'm going to check my own hunting profile. No, I've been hunting since March 7. Look at that. Mouston's birthday is March 7. That's the equivalent of forgetting the birthday of one of your kids, I think. So the birthday is on March 7 is our actual birthday, but we'll start the event. Right now our plan is to start Wednesday, March 2. It's the Super Brief Factory that you may come to expect or be familiar with from the last few years. But as always, kind of make a few iterations. We get a lot of great feedback. We log that for next year's project. If we do end up reusing that event or revisiting that event, then we can incorporate a lot of the great feedback that we get from hunters. And some of that is new updated rewards, kind of some familiar favorites coming back. The Queso Pump Trap, that's non-limited edition, has a strong tie to the birthday event. You can expect that to come back, as well as some new items to find, continuing the tradition with a cake base, and kind of maybe leave it to be a surprise what this year's cake base theme will be, as well as quality of life improvements, UI tweaks, that sort of things. Kind of consolidate a little bit between browser and mobile. There's a little bit of discrepancy here and there. So kind of smoothing out some of those things, some things that maybe caused confusion in the factory. And adding extra rich cheesecake, so extra rich cloud cheesecake to the Hollow Heights pack as well, to kind of bring that in line, update that with part of the Sky Palace. And I believe the goal there was with that package is maybe even rework how some of the cheese slots work, of when you open it up, what types of cheese you find, create a little bit more consistency. Or kind of, so at least maybe you see a little bit of something you're aiming for no matter where, because the Hollow Heights region is a diverse one. It spans quite a few areas and adventures, different gameplay, a lot of different resources in play. It's not as tightly connected as, say, something as the Tribal Isles. So maybe reworking that just a little bit. So hopefully you kind of find a more diverse variety of stuff when you open up each individual bag. Mark asks, is there a reason why the Hope Mouse is still an event mouse? Confuses quite a few hunters who do not know it is available all the time. Could be moved to Froma mice. That might be a fair move for the Hope Mouse. We're hoping to maybe repurpose that a little bit. Froma is long overdue for a little bit of an not a complete overhaul, but we kind of want to make some significant adjustments to Froma and kind of the pacing of it and the characters and what they play. And some of that I think we're going to be able to do with the shops overhaul that we've been working on. But we also kind of want to sit down, get a heads-up display made, do some inventory management, be able to craft the cheese a lot easier there. And I think maybe some of the identity or some of the roles that the mice play in Froma might shift around there. So in the back of our mind, I feel like we've always we know we're going to get around to that. And so sometimes we think, well, maybe we'll just change it once rather than kind of change it and then change it again down the road. But it can be tough too because there's no definite timeline on when we'll be able to get to that as well. Rish says the bulwarks are bullying you. Well, it's a fitting name. Yeah, the bulwark can be a bit of a meanie when you're climbing the tower, that's for sure. KDM says, wow, it's already been a year since the birthday event. You still remember the vending machine. I believe this is going to be the third year of the vending machine, unless I'm horribly mistaken. I could be horribly mistaken. I think this is going to be the third iteration of the vending machine. I just love the snack bags that the art team put together. Keep in mind that they're not packages that go into your inventory when you go to the vending machine. It kind of simulates just opening it right away. That kind of helps us as well. It's a lot easier for us now to update the Hollow Heights party pack there without having to create a new package or having players worry about, well, should I open it? What if they change what's inside the bag next year and I'm going to wait? Maybe I'll open it next year. And you just kind of end up being fearful about opening up and just enjoying the rewards. So it's a little bit easier anytime, and the golems work the same way, right? Like you claim a golem and all the items. You see everything you get, but it's not like a little package to open later. So will there be a twisted carmine egg? I think there's already a shattering egg. So there's a shattered carmine egg. I would never object to adding more eggs to the Living Garden complex, if you will. Angie says the return of Ronza burgers. I can't remember off the top of my head, but we did recently do an extensive audit of all the collectibles, and I think by the end of event season, all of those somewhat estranged collectibles will have been made available again. So a few of them got kind of left by the wayside or forgotten about as different iterations of events kicked in. So there were some non-limited edition collectibles that could not otherwise be obtained. And so we went through and we kind of identified some that had an identity to a specific event, and we made sure they were obtainable during those events. And I think so by the end of the spring egg hunt, everything should be there. I don't recall. I think the Ronza burger would be a Ronza collectible, but I think we maybe tied that in with either last year's Ronza. If not, then it would have been slotted for the next time Ronza visits. Generic Potato asks, when will we get an upgrade for the queso pump thingy this time? No, that's not part of the plans right now, but a good suggestion. Daniel asks, diamond cheese. I do believe diamond cheese is in the Hollow Heights party pack as a potential cheese you can find. Alex says, given diamond hide is common on Elite Chrome Slayer, more diamond would be nice. Well, I think, I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure there was already something you could find in the Hollow Heights party pack. So it says, shifting Froma, will the hapless be the true boss like in the Rift? No, I mean, I think that is part of the humor of the Rift. The least powerful mouse becomes the most powerful. And so, you wouldn't want to lose that somewhat humorous juxtaposition. More about smoothing out a few things, kind of like drop rates. We've spoken in the past as well. A lot of those areas now that are 8-10 years old at this point, a lot of them were added to the game as though it was sort of the final end game challenge, because we didn't really know how long the game would go on for. And so in the back of our minds, where I was kind of thinking, well, this might be the last expansion we had, even as far back as Froma. I was like, well, this is kind of the epic potential finale to the game. Who knows how much longer we're going to keep adding expansions to the game. So kind of want to bring things to a head, right? And the Tribal Isles was the kind of ultimate exclamation point on that. But that just kind of doesn't withstand the test of time, as sort of much more interesting challenges come, and there's just so much more content to do. We would pace it a lot differently if we're doing Froma today. So things like increasing the drop rate of Froma tokens, playing around with the difficulty of the mice there, especially making them a little bit more appropriate to kind of the upgrades you earn along there. And you kind of, we'll see, it's an ongoing project, but a long-term goal of ours to revisit a lot of those older areas and just kind of tune the pacing to be a little bit closer to what we would do today, knowing everything that comes after it. KDM says, nope, this is only the second year of the vending machine. Really? I could have swore. Russell says, oh, you're right. You know, the cheese got added when you pumped. It got added to the crate. And then I think the vending machine came along to add a little bit more autonomy so you could help choose what cheese you want to be. Yeah, okay. Maybe that's what I was thinking of is we added more than just Super Brie to the reward of pumping it. And then that kind of got improved into being the pack so you could have more autonomy over what kind of cheese you want. The Ronza burger is LE, says Mark. Well, there you have it. Maybe that's why I didn't pick up on the audit. Any LE collectibles would not be making a return. And Jonathan confirms, yes, second year for the vending machine. Well, there you have it. Forgive me, acronyms. I'm not always the best. DHB copycat for the birthday, like the ultimate iceberg base. God, I don't know what the DHB is. Midst, I got your dingle hopper after... What? I just got my dingle hopper after a year of trying. I might need some context for that as well. Why So Famous asks, how about a new arcane area? Better not do this from memory. That might be in the cards, though. Final point here, too, on the Super Brief Factor, the QA room. We're going to give that a little bit of a tweak. Just kind of interesting perception as well. Where there's almost some players had a little bit of a hesitation to update the QA room because they would prefer regular Super Brie rather than Empowered. And even though you can smash Empowered and just turn it into Super Brie, just kind of smooth that out a little bit. Make it so it's all good. And there's never kind of a downside to anything. Tweaking that so it adds Empowered Super Brie to the yield rather than have it convert a portion of the Super Brie. So in years past, you do your first pass and the crate has Super Brie. Then you update the QA room and a little bit of it now is Empowered. And eventually all of it becomes Empowered. Going to tweak that so that the QA room is adding Empowered Super Brie on top of the Super Brie that you were already getting for filling the crate. So it's all gravy. It's all good. There's kind of no foreseeable downside to it. It says, yes, second year you watched Jacob painting the vending machine on Feedback Friday. I've only been playing a little over a year. All right, there you have it. The years are blending together a little bit for me now. What can I say? Fernanda's nice mug. Oh, yeah, I am drinking from my hubby mug. My wife gave that to me for Christmas. Gerald, I remember watching the vending machine being, I'm behind in the chat, but you too have remembered watching it being drawn last year's Feedback Friday. Jessco, the Desert Heater base. Thank you. That was a Great Winter Hunt base when the Shorts All Year Mouse was the main antagonist of that. That's definitely been a popular base. A lot of the times, events are a nice playground, a way to experiment around with a little bit with something of, well, what if we take an existing resource that has sort of reached its cap in usefulness, and what if there's an item that kind of helps you burn it into something else? And, you know, that kind of seemed, hey, Desert Heater Base was a big hit, had a lot of positive feedback around there. And you can almost kind of turn around to a few of the other areas and start thinking about things like minerals. In Mausu Picchu, you can think around the solidified amber queso that you get in Queso Canyon, and kind of, it sparks more inspiration, seeing like, well, the Desert Heater Base went over well. Are there ways we can tie that into the reward structure either through events or even just permanent in-game upgrades that might have similar mechanics, even if they're not quite the same item. Dingle Hopper is a collectible from the Sunken City, really? I don't even know if I have the Dingle Hopper. Kidium says, why does the 20 Relic Hunter scroll limit exist when you can hold more scavenger scrolls than the limit? It's a hassle to constantly convert them over to just be able to hold more Relic Hunter scrolls. Yeah, it's a tricky spot because when you reach the cap, if there wasn't a cap and you want to use your relics to buy area-specific maps, then you get a little bit annoyed when the Relic Hunter mouse shows up because she keeps stealing your relics and be like, I don't want these scrolls, go away, leave my ancient relics alone. So there's a little bit of friction in the mechanic of how the Relic Hunter mouse works in that regard, and so the kind of the caps there a little bit to help players who are not interested in doing Relic Hunter maps to not have their relics slowly be kind of pillaged away by the Relic Hunter. But it could definitely use a more creative way where both sides feel that they have autonomy over the situation. So yeah, not perfect, could be improved for sure. Fernandez asks, why did Ellie items have their power levels reduced? Was there fear of people getting upset they didn't get the top thing? Do you mean literally changing the stats of existing Ellie traps? I don't know if that's occurred, but or do you mean kind of going forward, how now limited edition traps are no longer sort of best in power type traps? They just don't scale with kind of the curve in the game now. Typically, when you think about the reward for an event, it's something that you can obtain during the event, and events last 2 to 4 weeks is kind of a long event. There are best in power type traps that take definitely longer than 4 weeks to earn, and so they just don't keep up now with the scale of effort that other things have in the game. And so they might be best in the area, but it's kind of hard to dethrone something without it just being, well, this was just, it made all this effort I put to earn this very impressive upgrade by completing adventures and leveling up and kind of putting in a whole bunch of effort there. It just kind of takes away that accomplishment when it's like, well, here's something you can earn in a week and it's 10 times better. But in the early game, didn't have that problem because traps didn't have the same scale. Swap on back over here, I guess. Russell missing the Mega Journal theme, hoping tournaments can come back. Yeah, it's definitely on our radar, but it's in a bit of a precarious position. Frank, missing tournaments here too. When will they be back? Have kind of no clue. I mean, the ideal solution is to basically rebuild them from scratch, but it's many months of work, and unfortunately we just don't have the bandwidth to take on a project that large right now. So everyone's chipping away. Like I said, I did uncover potentially, Giorgio was working on potentially something to maybe smooth out an issue, but it might be kind of the root of the issue might be even larger than that. Kidium says every scroll is a rare map dust chance, so it feels like a waste to catch a relic hunter, not get a scroll. Yeah, but it's a little subjective, right? So it's tough. Some hunters might feel one way, some hunters might feel the other. Even, we've toyed around with the idea of being able to exchange your relics for rare map dust. Because you already can, it's just extremely tedious to do so, which usually something tedious is not very fun. And so why don't we remove the tedious part and keep the fun aspect of it, of like, hey, I can exchange relics. There might be a little bit of fun in the uncertainty. Sometimes you might get lucky, like, hey, just back to back, I found it in this. Even the unique surprise of you're just going to start a map and like, oh, that one had dust in it. Cool, I'm going to dust this map. It's like, I get to start this one dusted for free. And how many upcoming locations are generally being planned or are in production? At the moment, technically 3, I guess. There are 2 events being actively worked on right now in the Spring Egg Hunt. We need to get started on pretty soon as well. And then on that, there are 3 areas in production. Kidium, every scroll is a rare... Oh, I'm having a hard time remembering where I left off in the chat here as I look away. Zeng, you lost your mega token from the golems for the journal. You got your mega token from the golems for the journal theme. That is a creative way to go about it as well, but I would agree, not ideal that you'd have to wait for the winter hunt and utilize the tournament hall there. So, maybe even just a temporary solution might be to add that to the tournament hall in some capacity, because for all intents and purposes, tournaments are kind of don't exist in the game any longer. Owen says, Dave, I know this is Feedback Friday for event roadmap, but any chance you have non-event roadmap as well that you can share? Maybe an interface rework, something like that. Yeah, for sure. I started with events because to get the ball rolling, never know what kind of questions are going to come up in chat. And we definitely tying up the loose ends for Lunar New Year as well as birthday. But just, outside of events is just fine as well. We're putting a little work right now into updating the supply transfer interface. I think that is currently one of the oldest interfaces in the game. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure maybe I made that like 12 years ago, and you don't want me making interfaces. You don't want me doing that for 1 second. So that's hopefully getting a little bit of love. And outside of that, working on the next piece of episodic content as well. And hopefully it's something that kind of lays the foundation that we want to expand upon a little bit as well, kind of going forward. So you almost think like, hey, Fungal Cavern paved the way for the Labyrinth, which kind of paved the way for Machu Picchu, which kind of paved the way for Floating Islands. Want to make a similar but maybe more cohesive even arc as well. So that first expansion, almost a little bit in reverse, something maybe more the size of the labyrinth that can lead into something that's kind of like the fungal cavern and Mouse Picchu a little bit. So I have a few different things on the go. Okay, the Relic Hunter Mouse drop relics instead of pillaging them, and the Relic Hunter Mouse be added to the Cartographer. Says Dallas, that's a pretty elegant solution to it as well. Free Schmidt, that's a dapper mug there today. Hey, the mug's getting a lot of love here. That'll be my tuxedo for the day. Ahmed, can you come up with a grand strategy to revive the game? So I really miss when there were over 40,000 hunters hunting at the same time. That's kind of, an ongoing project as well. And so, we kind of, that would be a long road before we reach the destination there. So, we won't kind of get into too much detail, but, definitely that's something that's on our mind as well. Just kind of modernizing the game as a whole while still kind of keeping it true to its origin and its identity of the type of game it is as well. So, that's something we kind of, it's on our minds as well, and chip away at it a little bit as well. It's sorely needed. Frank says, I keep missing the mug. Show us the mug. All right, on a completely MouseHunt related part, I'm drinking tea from a hubby mug that has a golden bow tie. So I'm just clasp the joint up a little bit. When you get to hold it right here for a second, it's like you're wearing a small tuxedo. James asks, will Chrome Bits and Ronza stay the same in the future, or are there plans to change things? No plans to make changes. Again, nothing concrete. We kind of haven't started work on that event at all, but there's no plans to change it. The feedback has been relatively positive from the Chrome Bits. It's kind of having something exciting to work on that doesn't get in the way of other goals and kind of helps fit the identity of Ronza. So no plans to change anything, but by the time now and the time we start, that decision may change, I suppose. Russell says, oh man, didn't know it was one of the rewards. Thanks for letting me know, Mitz. Yeah, that's a pretty good reward from the tournament hall in general as well. You can get tournament tokens. I'm going to kind of trickle those in. If there's something you're looking collectible, the Champions Ring, I believe it's called. Elam says, please make the Diamond House mouse easier to encounter or come up with some attraction charm specific where I wasted too much diamond cheese and it just never showed up. Yeah, fair. There are some spots in the game. That's part of MouseHunt though, is hunting the difficult breeds and opting into it. It's part of the challenge at times. Somebody says, I missed the Nitro Fireworks Carl's Cozy Cruise. That brings us back a little bit as well. Jason, would you guys ever consider getting rid of the tariff on the marketplace? I suppose consider. No plans in the immediate future. It definitely kind of helps as well in terms of kind of, I don't know, speculation a little bit and discourage people from maybe trying to sell an item to themselves. So it's useful for a variety of reasons. But add some complexity as well. There's a little cognitive load when you go to buy or sell something. You have to account for this thing. But that's something you have to do in real life as well. You have to account for usually sales tax on things. So I think it's a real world connection that a lot of people are familiar with or used to making that, used to that flow. Generic Potato says, can I get an estimate on how long I have to finish up getting all non-event bronze crowns before more challenging mice get added? Or is this too soon to ask? Well, I would say if all goes according to plan, there should be some new mice coming in the summer. So get cracking, I guess. Fernandez asks, when will all mice get belly buttons? Well, probably never, I guess. There are some mice that simply do not have belly buttons. So we'll have to ask the zoologists of Nadia to figure out what's going on with that genealogy there. Kirk, you've been playing for years. Lately just got kind of coasting, but want to say thank you in person for all the entertainment you got from MouseHunt. Fantastic. Great to hear, Kurt. Glad you've been enjoying the game. And that's the natural ebb and flow. Maybe mouse hunters never kind of leave. They just take breaks that they don't know how long the break is going to be for at times. So, happy to hear you're still having fun. Frank asks, how long have you been playing? 13 plus years here. That is a long time considering we are about to celebrate our 14th birthday in March. MC Mark says, where can I send suggestions and innovations for the game, sir? There is a forum, the Ideas and Suggestions forum, which isn't maybe as active as it used to be. Sharing things on Discord as well. Anywhere there's a community aspect to it, even different groups and that kind of, just advocating for different things and seeing what kind of chatter. That's very useful to us as well, is just kind of seeing what themes come up frequently. And, even if it's not verbatim, that exact idea, often we take the sentiment and we start thinking about, a lot of players are asking for this. Well, why? Like what's the motivation behind wanting that? And that might lead to different inspiration, and it all kind of plays a role along with other things to help us decide where we spend our time and what we work on next. So, sharing with other players is a productive way, because we like to try to keep our ear to the ground as much as possible, see kind of what chatter players have going. Like, beyond a doubt, there's lots of chatter on tournaments, right? So that's just, now it's ingrained in our mind to try to make that happen somehow, even if we can't sit down and make a plan to make it happen. It makes us opportunistic. It's something on our minds. And even the example I gave at the start there, where Giorgio kind of came across something, and because that type of player chatters around, it's like, wait a minute, I'm working on an unrelated bug that has nothing to do with tournaments, but I came across something that maybe this might help us a little bit. And so, that's immensely helpful. Or we'll be putting together an unrelated feature. Like I mentioned, we're working on supply transfers, and maybe there's been suggestions to do player-to-player trading, like, hey, I want to trade you a temporal shadow plate for X amount of super brie, or 7 of this charm, 9 of that, and that kind of crossed our minds. That ultimately it was a little bit outside the scope of what we could work on there, but it's just those underlying sentiments and themes that we hear from players might influence decisions as we work on even unrelated features, never mind just kind of that exact idea. Can the tax in sending gold be decreased, asks Mark? Unfortunately, because of the way the marketplace works, they have to be identical. Otherwise, it creates a very odd scenario where it's better to send an item and then hope that the person sends you the gold, rather than use the marketplace where there's no sort of trust or involved. There's a handshake there. So they have to be identical. Otherwise, it incentivizes people to try to scam others, basically, by saying, yeah, I'll buy that from you and you'll save 10%, but oops, I never sent you the gold, and somebody has to go first and take that leap of faith. Is kind of awkward. Angie says, can you add browsable categories to the marketplace, such as kits, skins, and cheese? Yeah, definitely. Fair enough. That one category is just massive, right? And it encompasses far too much. KDM says, what is the next permanent area in line? Well, the working title right now, and fair enough, I don't know if we're completely attached to it, because the working title is called The Fabled Forest, which Lauren shared on the pre-holiday Feedback Friday, if I'm not mistaken. But that's it. It is not for Fabled Hunters. So we do love our alliteration. It's a pretty nice name that we like, but who knows whether that goes through as the final name. We might want to kind of pick something from the lexicon that doesn't overlap with an in-game title. Rift Tribal Isles suggests some. It might take a little bit of a break from the Rift, maybe until somebody has a little bit of inspiration to kind of pick that storyline back up. I know I personally struggle a little bit with the Rift areas. I feel like it's kind of run its course a little bit, so we're waiting for that right sort of inspiration to kind of pick things up and kind of not close off the storyline, but continue it in a more interesting way. Carl is dead, says Swift. Indeed, Carl did turn into a zombie one Halloween, so somebody would have to take over his business if his crews were to come back. Fernandez says, when will Mice from Clawshot City open a casino strip above the Sandtail Desert? That was in the cards before Queso Canyon, and ultimately we decided to go in the direction of the Queso River and what have you. But originally there was kind of a card house, a root beer brewery. I forget what the third area was slotted to be. But part of us, don't want to lean into kind of a gambling theme either too. It didn't feel like it was the best fit for the game. Also, kind of keep something more whimsical, more adventurous. And so I don't know. We kind of didn't like the direction. Even the original The original theme of the queso river, rather than pumping queso, it was like queso oil, and you're kind of like striking oil, if you will. Kind of like the queso was underground, and we kind of had these like an oil derrick shaped thing, and just kind of as we put it together, it had a bit of the two of us kind of unfun smoggy theme. It was like, well, hold on, like, are we like extracting natural resources from the ground? And it didn't feel fun and whimsical. And so we thought, well, what if it's just like a big old river of queso, and you're pumping out of it, and it just keeps on coming. Felt a lot more fun and lighthearted. Didn't have those kind of rough edges to it. So, any update on the next area Fabled Forest? Asked Yutoshiro. Yeah, it's coming along. I feel like we're a little bit ahead of the schedule on it. A little too soon to share too much. Maybe help us get a little bit through event season, as they'll take priority as well. So kind of relatively small teams. Sometimes you have to shift priorities around a little bit, and it's tricky for us to work on more than one thing at once. That said, I think the team's doing a fantastic job at just that. We have Lunar New Year on the go. The birthday event is actively being developed, and episodic content, the next permanent adventure and expansion to the game, was started last year, and that's, I wouldn't say unprecedented, but definitely over the last few years, just it's been very difficult for us to even start a project like that soon enough to kind of see it all the way through in time. So it's just been fantastic that we've been able to work on things in tandem like that. Nathan says, hey, you should play this game. Can't do friend stuff, though, until you reach the Grand Duke, so we'll see you in a few months. Might be closer to years at that, Nathan. That's something on our mind as well. Finding, exploring better ways to be able to hunt with friends who aren't necessarily in your location. I know that's kind of been ingrained in the game in a long time, but there's been a few different ideas floating around on how best to approach that. As well as a whole, we were talking about Feroma a little bit earlier on Feedback Friday, and just kind of drop rates, pacing, and reevaluating that stuff. And just in general, in the mid and early game, a lot of things feel like they're over the top epic challenge. Even I'm playing through the game from scratch. I think I started last year, and just all these little barriers that I hit on this other account that I play, not nearly as actively, but it kind of gives good perspective on where there's a lot of barriers. Like trying to afford to build the SS Huntington is completely out of whack with the state of the game as a whole now. Even Tribal Isles, trying to get 30 seashells, or never mind 30, but trying to get 300 so you can make quite a few batches of shell cheese is what I'm really stuck at the moment. Kathy says, I love MouseHunt. Got you through a rough time in 2009 when you found it friended quite a few people from all, moving over the ranks of them. Only wish I had known when you started. Thank you so much. Oh, beautiful to hear. Glad you got to meet. That's what make games fun a lot, is meeting new people to play with. It's the experience you have playing other people. That's what makes multiplayer games special. Not just the game itself, but the people you meet while you play it. Cold in the office. It is a little chilly today. It is currently -12, and I am in the lower floor here of a poured slab construction. So I'm basically sitting on top of concrete with minimal insulation between me. So it's a chilly one. Sometimes it feels like I'm sitting on an ice block. Any hints on the power types for the Fabled Forest? Maybe not quite yet. I'll say 3 will come into play, though. And then they can provide rewards for different power types that we kind of want to build. Again, based on feedback, kind of see how the expansion goes. But hopefully, if it goes over well, it kind of sets the stage to add additional things to it. You can almost think a little bit like Queso Canyon, like the original 3 areas kind of lends itself well to then adding the geyser afterwards. It's very kind of complementary. Or the fungal cavern, not quite to the same extent, led into the labyrinth and kind of introduced certain resources. Anon says, you think areas with a more natural theme fit better than society-themed areas like Clawshot and the Donny Express? Really excited about the new area. Yeah, it's a little more freedom as well to kind of explore in the environment. Although then you don't have interesting characters to build backstory for as well. But Sally Sunshine, 13.5 years. That's almost the entire time. MC Mark, when is Ronza coming? Haven't heard from her yet. Page King, you could add levels to the old areas for higher level players, kind of like tiers in the Gauntlet. Yeah, for sure. It would be tricky to kind of upkeep as the years go by, right? Every time we add a new area or new kind of players get to kind of another title phase, we can almost have to go back and redo the whole game under that scope. So it'd be a little bit tricky, I think, for us to pull off with just the size of the team we have. Preachment with the classic joke of every time you say her name, it adds another day before she comes back. She might be slotted to come back in 797,000 days now. Eileen, 13 years for you as well in February, and 400,000 plus total mice caught. Holy smokes. Nan says, yeah, the team's done a good job introducing a variety of themes instead of just going up an epicness scale, which would end up limiting your options for the future. Well, there is an expression in game design. You can always go more epic, but yeah, sometimes it does get hard to keep going up if you go that route for sure. It can be a little tricky too. Different kind of themes of areas. Some are sort of very epic adventure storylines, but a lot of, especially at the beginning of the game, kind of like cute and whimsical as well. Kind of want to bring a little bit of that back into it. Obviously, it's nice to have both because it's this variety of story that appeals to everybody. But during any good story, there's scenes of comedic relief, and it just, if anything, they complement. They provide a slight break in the action where you kind of you smile and you're not quite on the edge of your seat as much. And then those breaks make the epic things feel even more epic, so things have to be kind of those highs and those lows. So kind of exciting with the forest, a little bit more of a whimsical feel, but there's still some elements of like, whoa, this is like an epic, sinister plot that I need to put an end to at the same time. So kind of it marries the two well. I think it's turning out great so far. Nathan says the Huntington, before having King's credit for metal, was brutal. It's a perfect example too. Just very long time ago, the decision making was often, well, this is kind of feels like the last thing. Everything just needs to be an epic struggle to overcome. Building the ship, defeating the dragon mouse. Never even mind defeating the dragon mouse. Building the ancient box trap so you could get the acolyte, so then you could defeat the dragon. A step in the epic adventure was over the top epic as well. So just it's safe to say now, knowing how large the game is and how long. We've been able to add expansions to it. We went kind of pace things out, and I like to think we've gotten better at our craft over the years as well. So it's nice now we have the opportunity, slowly but surely, kind of reevaluate the pacing of some of those older areas and kind of bring them up to date with how we would do it today. Warren says, I'd like to see new areas that use previous area resources, so in-game players want to go back and hunt in old areas. That's an interesting one for me. And I try to dig into like what's the underlying like motivation for wanting to go back to some of those old areas. And I wonder if it's a little bit of a case of nostalgia. Like you remember all the fun you had going through the tribal isles, let's say. And I was like, oh, wouldn't it be great if I needed seashells for something? But I worry like it wouldn't actually be great if you needed seashells for something. It's kind of, I wonder if the motivation to want to go back and go get those resources all over again is kind of reliving the fun you had when that was fresh and new and a brand new challenge for you, and not so much the actual like wanting to go and do it, or it might feel like a bit of a slog. But so we try to find creative ways to spot in those kind of older resources. Even look at the toxic spill was a big experiment in that direction as well. Like what if we made radioactive blue cheese just important again? But originally it was like, okay, go back to the lab and farm radioactive blue cheese. Like, I don't want to do that. It's Master, and I'm a Grand Duke. I don't want to go catch these piddly mice and earn no gold, and they're not challenging, and there's no interesting upgrades to earn. And so, that didn't go too well. And so that has us lean away from things like making some epic endgame area. But I was like, well, you need seashells and delicious stone. So please go back to the tribal isles to go get those, or even you need fool's gold, so please go down all the way down there. It kind of, you need to carry those forward consistently, and I think spots that maybe did that a little bit better were the labyrinth, or rather the fungal cavern into the labyrinth into Mousu Picchu, things like fungus and nightshade. Just kind of, it has a longer arc in its usefulness. Minerals as well, just kind of peppering those in, but you can still obtain those minerals. So it almost has to be done with a little bit more purpose and intention as you go. If there's too long of a gap, you almost kind of need to revisit that, add it to those higher level areas to begin with, and it kind of defeats the purpose of, like, you won't have to go back there. Other things are a great fit for that, though, I think, like maps. They encourage you to go back to those areas, but they add new interesting challenges and rewards that are more rank appropriate for you. So even though you're going back and doing things that are kind of simpler and easier, and you're kind of beyond that point of challenge in the game, it scales with you a little bit better in terms of reward structure. And now you have sort of like a zoomed out challenge. It's like, well, it's not very hard for me to go get a Dir Chieftain anymore. When I was a legendary hunter, that was very hard to go get a Dir Chieftain. But now that's simple for me. But hey, can I go get all 3 chieftains and these mice and this mice and complete the whole map? And how quickly can I do it? And you're kind of opting in for, okay, these challenges, these things that are no longer challenging, orchestrating them in a bigger picture way to make it challenging and interesting again when you're ready for that. I think I'm rambling. Fernandez, -12 Kelvin. That's too cold. I would hope not. I don't think I would be alive anymore. I would just, a slight breeze and I would shatter. Subra says, hey Dave, wanted to add a comment about crafting versus shop. You think crafting should be used when you want to keep the trap a secret from hunters, e.g. let them find out from a blueprint drop or bosses? I mean, that's another good example as well. I know it's something we did a lot of previously, and it didn't age very well. And now resounding feedback we get from new people coming through the game, even as, hey, we've been fortunate enough, we've been able to expand the team a little bit. As new people join the team and they're playing through the game for the first time, and they're just kind of lost, like, I didn't even know that trap existed. And so for a lot of things, the shop is just a much better mechanism for that. You show up and you can see something. So part of the shop's overhaul we're working on now, so let's say the heat bath. You know it exists, and although that's maybe not the most important hydro upgrade to make at that point in the game when you're a knight, just in general, kind of things like that, you show up and you can just see, and you can easily compare it to the trap you have. You can easily see, okay, what do I need to build that trap? Now we're adding a little quality of life improvement where when you're in the shop, you can click or tap those things that you use to purchase the trap, and Larry's Loot Lexicon gives you a hint of like, well, where do I go to get this? And so there's just a lot less having to study the wiki and do homework to figure out how to do the fun part, kind of bringing some more of that information in the game and ultimately giving good feedback signals. So I think in terms of an event and like a community thing where everyone's doing the same thing at the same time, having a secret that the players don't know about can be very fun. But then as that ages and not everyone's all doing the same thing, now it's the secret's just confusing. It's very hard to figure out, and there's no feedback on how to go about doing that thing. And when I reflect upon the past, a lot of the things that were added to the game that were kind of, oh, secret, you got to figure out how to do it, they were fun at the time because, in a way, when new content is released, it's like an event that everyone's all doing at the same time. So there's appetite to figure out, like a whodunit style mystery. But when 10 years go by, there's no appetite anymore. You're all on your own and you got to figure that out. It's very hard to, if you will, kind of like solo that. It's a better group experience. So events, I think, are a great fit for that. And kind of one-off above and beyond goals may be a good fit for that. But those core things that somebody, if you don't use the wiki, you don't have anyone else helping you play the game, you need to be able to figure out how to build those upgrades yourself without having to do calculus on a whiteboard, basically. Nathan says you could add a shop that uses early area loot as currency for various items, so it's always useful, but never a must-have. Yeah, for sure, but I mean, still, you're going back to those areas to obtain that stuff. So, I think it could be incorporated into the loop of that area, and we try when we can. For example, Amber Queso buying Dragonbane charms, Notchore being able to be spent at the shop. You only need so much Notchore to upgrade your pump, and then you kind of don't really need it for too much important things after that. And so kind of building it into the loop of the area is nice. So whenever I feel like I got too much of this, oh, I can convert it into something else. Okay, cool. Swift says stale cheese is weird and that you still sometimes get them, but they don't really do anything. Yeah, it just hasn't aged well as the game has gone on, right? Kind of as the game grows, adapts, and improves, there'll be some kind of mechanics, themes, and items that kind of will start to show their age. Stale cheese is definitely one of those. Elam says, no, please don't make us go back to the old areas just to grab materials. It's hard enough to keep up with new areas. Well, yeah, exactly. So, that's why I think it'd be a little polarizing to have to kind of go back and get kind of low level resources to help you in high level areas. And in some ways, it isn't fun unless you choose to do that. So they have to be very opt in style goals. Even in a way like lightning maps, kind of if you have to do it isn't very fun, but because you choose to do it, like you choose like, no, I'm going to take on this very challenging thing that has a good reward. But you're not, the game doesn't tell you have to do it to, it doesn't block you from anything else. Those are great fits for those above and beyond challenges when it is just that. And it's above and beyond and something a goal you choose to set for yourself. And she says your development over the years has been phenomenal, not in adding new years, but how you develop the functionality. I say this more robust, clever, and witty game. Oh, that's very nice here. It's a testament to the talented team that works on the game day in, day out. Mark, maybe a rank-based loot multiplier for low-rank resources. The higher rank you are, the more loot on one mouse. When you think about that, though, it intrinsically kind of exists in the game. As you get better traps and you come back, you can just smack the mice around when you come back to that low-level area. Like sometimes people talk about, they worry about power creep. And I've always said it doesn't exist. It's a pacing thing. You're totally expected when you are an Archduke and you have awesome traps. When you go back to the meadow, the mice are not challenging. It is a complete walk in the park, and you just never fail to catch a mouse ever again when you're that over leveled for the area. So it's about pacing, and so I think that's a good way to go rather than build sort of a complex mechanic that is aimed at doing that. If you can intrinsically just have it built into the core functionality of the game, of the mice are weak or relatively weak when you become relatively strong, and it's just there's no upkeep there involved either. It's just built into the core mechanic of the game. We should wrap things up pretty soon as well here. I think I'm rambling away on a soapbox here. What time is it? Ooh, almost 50 minutes in. Holy. Severio, yep, the maps all keep areas really alive, really low. Yeah, absolutely. Maps have become just such a huge component of the game, hugely popular with just so many players. And I think because it appeals to different players types and there's so much autonomy, like, do you want to do the map? Do you not? Opened up this whole perfect example of opening up this whole other kind of community around it. Even just the entirety of sniping, leeching, that sort of thing, like buying slots and that. It's just so interesting to see how that plays out in a kind of player-to-player experience and just building a community around taking, okay, it's almost as though the game gives players a tool and the players make a fun game themselves just with those tools, even though it doesn't actually exist in the game in that capacity. It's fantastic to see. I feel like it's always a testament to a good game if players play it in a way that the developers never anticipated they would play it. It means there's depth there. There's interesting things that different players can do different things to have fun in different ways. James says, I think the Living Garden in ultimate terms is a good example of going back to an earlier part of the game to hunt. Yeah, that's a great example. Yeah, and definitely have risen in popularity as of late with Halloween kind of providing a little bit of synergy to that as well. And interestingly enough, that area, I like the Living Garden quite a bit myself. At first, it was a little bit too complicated for me, but once I got into it, once you get past the learning curve, actually, it's a fantastic little suite of areas, and it's a good example of there's kind of above and beyond challenges there. Whether you're aiming for shattering mice, you can kind of go through it, get the adventure done, get some important upgrades unlocked and move on, but then you can almost come back when you're stronger and take on something that's even more challenging, and the reward scales well still. Dallas says, I love the secret blueprint traps. Makes sense to add them to Trapsmith over time, but you'd hate to lose out on the initial community fun. Yeah, Dallas, I think you nailed it there, right? The initial community fun. You always think about when you see a suggestion, okay, not just what a suggestion is, but the why. I feel like that's always the most, no matter what you're doing in life, forget about playing a game, building a game, no matter what you're doing, always think about why. I feel this is always the most important thing. And so when somebody says, boy, I want more secret hidden blueprints that we got to figure out, like why? Why is that suggestion coming through, and why is it fun? What makes that thing fun? And it's that sense of community. It's that feeling of everyone's all doing the same thing at the same time. And there's this anticipation to do it for the first time. Like, when will the community figure out? And it kind of ceases being fun once the mystery's solved. It's not nearly as fun, right? So it's not as fun for 10 years down the road, somebody to come through and solve a mystery that's already been solved. It's like, you know, the fun part is done. It's the community figuring it out. And so it almost kind of needs to transition into being put into the game in a different way there. So that's a fantastic suggestion as well, though, just introducing things in a fun, mysterious way. I mean, in some ways, the Dragon Slayer canon does that, but also kind of leaves a breadcrumb around later. Owen says, I have too many pirate seals, so I can convert them into troves and get jewels that way. Yeah, I think you can. Can't you buy troves with seals unless I'm mistaken? I believe we did put something in the shop if you're just not interested in doing maps, or you ever end up with so many seals that it's like, I don't want to do that many maps. I'm in the floating island right now, actually, so look at this, I can check. Yes, the high altitude troves, there you go. 30 pirate seals. And the Empyrean seals as well. You know, you can exchange those for treasure troves also. I'm in the floating islands, I think, until the end of Lunar New Year. Then I'm back to the Living Garden, where I shall remain until the next episodic content comes out, I think. Hey, Swift says, stale cheese hasn't aged well. That was a totally unintentional pun, but that worked out perfectly well, and I didn't. All right, we should get to the trivia here. Because watch out, I can ramble forever. If you get me talking about something, I'll never shut up. So we'll get to trivia. Let me make sure I have the answer hidden. Pretty sure I hit it. Let me see here. I was proofreading. Yes, look at that, I did. This week's trivia question, we touched a little bit on the upcoming birthday, and that is, I'm pretty sure I've asked this exact question in the past, so forgive the lack of creativity, because as I read it, it sounds awfully familiar. Which mice were introduced as part of MouseHunt's third birthday, and what theme do they share? Dinglehopper is incorrect. Now I gotta see if I have a Dinglehopper. I forgot that collectible even existed. Swift has half the answer. I'm giving you 75% of the answer. The Sleepwalker, the Buckethead, and the Pintail are the three correct mice. They all can't see, but what do you call that in terms of a mouse theme? There's a popular... I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but... I don't know if it was a nursery rhyme. There we go. Ashley finishes off with the last 25% of the answer there. Buckethead, Pintail, and Sleepwalker are the three blind mice. And I hide the title instead of revealing the answer. There we go. I do, in fact, have a Dinglehopper. I believe that has to be an Ariel reference. Straighten one's hair, yeah, with the red lock of hair. I think that's a Little Mermaid reference, I'm going to say. Now we'll have to listen to that Disney song a little bit later. Three Blind Mice is correct. I will put that link in the chat as well. I want to be where the people are. Reward link coming into the chat. I can't find the chat. There it is. There's the version I'm signed in. Ashley crushed it. Congratulations, Ashley, and the rest of the chat. I think Swift was oh so close. Got the mice correct. Got that they all couldn't see, but that is the three blind mice for MouseHunt's third birthday. The birthday before that was the second birthday that introduced the Terrible Twos mouse and the infamous parental power, which to this day just lingers around as some artifact of the second birthday. Cheers, Dave. Have a good weekend, everyone. Hey, have a fantastic one, Ashley. Thanks for joining, as always. And on I the Dinglehopper 2, didn't even know. Look at that. Dinglehopper, who's it, what's it's. Swift says, I also never really knew the really, really shiny precious gold was a reference until one of the feedback Fridays is the retired Minotaur. That is his retired registered retirement savings plan. And it's up to you whether we should feel bad that we're pillaging him for that or not. But, you know, he is a mouse. He might, you know, maybe he's retired from his nefarious plans. But, I mean, I don't know. We can't show the mice, can't cut them any slack. Thanks for the charms. That is correct. I'm not signed in on Facebook. I can't claim it on my computer. Oh, great. Final Heart, any thoughts on how the Great Winter Hunt went and any stats on how many golems were sent, etc. from a player perspective? It was a lot worse in terms of golems we were able to send. Yeah, I mean, that would actually be an interesting topic as well. Summarize all that. See where the most popular location was. I mean, off the top of my head, if I recall, was the Floating Islands by a landslide, but the Living Garden suite of areas, specifically the Lost City and the Sand Dunes, made quite the resurgence as well. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's quite fair to say significantly limited in a number of golems they could send out. I think it still remains, we didn't change all that much about it, and remains one of the most rewarding events of the year. So, I get the sentiment, hey, more is more, but it is like above and beyond the most rewarding in terms of loot kind of event of the entire event season. So, I don't think it's been dethroned or made obsolete or anything like that. I mean, Lunar New Year definitely kind of is a contender in there as well, but it's interesting the way Lunar New Year event works, where it kind of encourages you to sort of double down on some resources or make use of very hard to get cheese and make kind of stretch your mileage a little bit further. Yeah, top players could send 100, 150 fewer golems as Curie less as heart. But do you think that's not enough? Like, do you need more loot? So it says the lack of tournaments made it harder to send golems than in previous years. Yeah, we try to compensate that a bit with animated snow, increasing the loot ever drop a little bit, as well as gift of the day. But to be fair, we're hoping to have time to even kind of reimagine the Great Winter Hunt a little bit next year, kind of keeping some parts of it. So it's all great feedback for next year, as well as we kind of maybe go back, not completely to the drawing board, but something with a fresh narrative at least. With that said, hey, that's many months away. We got to figure out exactly what we're going to do there. Mango, I got a lot of stuff this year and spent 0 other than a skin to get gold shield. Yeah, still an awesome event though. How long does Lunar New Year last? Lunar New Year is going to be 2 weeks plus a day, depending on how exactly you want to time things out there. But I believe it is going to start. This is danger. We're getting into Danger Dave territory here of me thinking about a calendar without looking at a calendar or having someone proofread that. But it is not going to start this coming Monday, but the following Monday is when we're planning to start the event, unless something goes wrong. And then it is going to end on a Tuesday, so there'll be one extra day compared to years past. That's fair. A lot of loot. Just wonder if the reduction was intentional. I mean, not directly intentional. I was kind of tune things a little bit, but I don't think anyone, we're putting it together at the offset, said, hey, we've got to make this thing horrible. So I definitely kind of aim. It feels like almost like a double, triple loot event. It is definitely intentional that you're not meant to keep 3 golems going at all times and kind of have endless parts just infinitely pile up. But, in some... it's kind of, you can comfortably eventually kind of maybe keep 1 going, maybe 2 feels somewhat comfortable, but definitely isn't the expectation that you can keep 3 going at all times. KDM says, Danger Dave, a new character is born. Watch out, Danger Dave doesn't know how to read a calendar. Mango says, my most golems ever. Your team wasn't with it enough to compete in a tourney, but you love them. Like I said, it's been many years of the Golem, so I think that plays a role as well. Just kind of as an event kind of gains that much history, there's kind of always a lot of like, back in my day kind of sentiment, or always kind of you naturally, right? It's human nature going to compare one year to the next. Whereas if it was just a whole new event, like Halloween event kind of stands on its own. The Cauldrons, it doesn't get compared to its predecessor in quite the same way. So I think if anything, the underlying sentiment, some of the feedback and comments is that, hey, maybe the golems are kind of done. It's time to reimagine that, at least kind of take sort of the underlying functionality and some of the mechanics that were really fun and just use them in a new light. So I think kind of it's very natural as the events go on of just kind of always kind of comparing them to the years past and kind of just always it gets difficult too. You don't want to have a pattern where like, okay, it's the same thing, but this year it's more and it's more and it's more. And as the years go by, it just kind of slowly gets out of control that way. So I think kind of, again, thinking like I was saying, looking at the why, where's the source of the sentiment coming from? And I think it's a little bit of fatigue from the golems of just not being as interested in the actual act of building out, sending out the golems and having fun playing the event, and starting to have that fun and that motivation shift all into sort of being fixated on what do I get out of it, right? Like as soon as you start thinking about the reward 99% of the time and the journey toward the reward only 1% of the time, that ratio of how much do I enjoy the experience of playing the event versus how much do I enjoy what I get out of the event, I feel like it needs to be split 50-50. And as events get repeated, it's natural. You have a little fatigue. I've done this 5 times before. I'm not really having as much fun building the golems and earning loot and earning the golem part pieces. And it's just now it's all about, no, I don't have fun until the end, and I just look at all the loot I got. That's the only moment I'm having fun. Usually a sign it's time to go. It's time to reimagine the gameplay of the event so you can have fun both playing the event and having the reward from the event at the same time, and not have it feel like you're kind of sitting at that slot machine and you don't care anymore. It's just like, I just give me my payout. When am I going to hit the jackpot kind of moment? I think it's kind of time for the golems to be reimagined a little bit in that sense. Free Schmidt, Danger Dave, like Evil Knievel or however he spells that. Yeah, I won't be taking my motorcycle, and I don't have a motorcycle. I won't be getting a motorcycle and jumping over any flaming school buses anytime soon. I'll live dangerously by trying to read a calendar and remembering dates without being able to reference them. Savario, I think without tournaments, it was just a different kind of event. The feeling was like to hunt in a boss area of 2 different part of gaming. Farming and sending gold. Yeah, and that's always the intention as well. Is like there's that's kind of core to the game. There's the farming aspect to it, and then there's that aspect of utilizing that, and hopefully having a choice in how to utilize the things you collect. That's kind of core in its identity. So I think maybe you nail a little bit there as well as far as natural. Like if this is the first time we were ever launching golems, no one would kind of compare it to previous iterations of the golem event, and we probably get very different feedback in that sense. So, I always have to kind of keep things in perspective that way as well. Well, on that note, we should wrap things up, I think. Over an hour. How does that happen? I was thinking in the back of my mind, and I have a somewhat short one, but we have some stuff to get to this afternoon as well, so I should probably wrap things up. Thank you for joining me, hunters, on this cold and chilly January morning. It'll be most likely, I think it'll probably be Jacob joining you next week, unless the plans shift and change a little bit. I'll see as you make that decision on Monday, seeing how the week is going to play out. Have a fantastic weekend, everybody. Happy hunting. You can look forward to the Lunar New Year event. It is going to kick off not this coming Monday, but the following Monday. I have no idea what date that is. I need to look at a calendar. That is indeed January 31. Danger Dave says it's January 31. So you'll be able to step into February with the Lunar New Year event. And then the birthday event to follow shortly thereafter. And finally, the spring egg hunt is sort of the conclusion of event season. And that's usually a lengthy one that you can take part in many locations as you try to uncover eggs. Mike, thank you, Dave, for your time and for another great Feedback Friday. Have a great weekend. Happy hunting and try to stay warm. Thank you so much. And have a good time. I had a good time on your very first Feedback Friday. Thanks for hosting. Hey, thank you for joining me. Glad to hear you had a good time. Mango with the smooches. All right. Oh, thank you for that as well. Happy Feedback Friday, Dave. Happy weekend. Lady Nutsy, thanks, Dave. Have a great weekend. You as well. Sunny, I live outside the U.S. Figured out during the Great Winter Hunt that you have to use a VPN to purchase anything at the marketplace. That seems a little bit peculiar. You might want to put in a support ticket depending exactly the context of that, because that should probably not be the case unless your ISP blocks things like a URL with the name game in it. I know I was working, I had to take my car in, and I was working from the mechanic. They have Wi-Fi and a chair and a table and a chair there, and I'm like, all right, I'm working from there, and I couldn't load MouseHunt because their browser or whatever just blocks something with their game in it, is my theory. So I had to kind of skirt around that a little bit. So you may want to check that out. Thanks for the answers and the engagement with those questions, Dave. You got it. Heart, have a fantastic weekend. Ryan even chiming in with the exact date range of Lunar New Year. Thank you so much for the help with calendars. As always, it is my kryptonite. It is my Achilles heel, is getting dates and times right, and without being able to quadruple check them. So have a fantastic weekend. Once again, thank you for joining me, everybody, and happy hunting.
1, 2.
You're a trap, don't seem to mind it. You attract me, I'm a mouse, you're a cat. I don't seem to mind it. Soft and furry, oh, and just when I think I'm safe, snap. Turns out I'm never safe, snap. Just when you think you're safe, snap. I come back. You don't seem to mind it, but I'm a fool. Broke my back. You don't seem to mind it, 'cause you're so cruel. Just when I think I'm safe, snap. Turns out I'm never safe, snap. Ooh. And just when you think you're safe, snap. Turns out I'm never safe.